Gentlemen, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hello, hello, hello. It's been a quick minute, hasn't it?
It's
It
been a while.
has.
It's been a while.
It
Yeah.
has been a while. And maybe in this episode or this recording or this stream, whatever you want to call it, we'll get into why it's been a while. But, this is, what is it, the 8th of July. So we're
It
smack
is.
down, smack dab, damn it.
Hot
And
damn.
What
there
are you
you
talking
go.
about?
In the middle of summer. So, woohoo.
Yeah.
Clarence, you're
It's
in
summer, all
Texas.
right.
Is everything okay with you with weather and everything?
Well, I'm up north Texas. I'm not in hill country, but hearts and minds to just the devastating toll they've taken down there from the immense flooding. So yeah, I'm fortunately out of the way of what's been going on down there.
Got
Yeah.
you. And Lee, our friend Bonnie, she's not in that affected area, is she?
Don't think
Think
so. I think
so?
of her as being more central
I,
Texas, but
I think so too.
yeah.
Well, but if you're not and you're listening to this, watching this live stream on one of the platforms later, wherever you are in Texas, if you are effective, wow, I can't
Yeah.
talk.
If you're
Our
affected.
hearts and prayers and thoughts go out to you, your family, your loved ones, during any time, but especially,
Yeah.
this time. But, all right, so guys, anything non-Who related that you want to talk about real quick before we get started?
Mm,
I got a Who related thing, actually.
Okay, well then hold the
But
Who.
yeah, I don't know if we'll get back to it, because we'll circle back.
All right, well
But
then we'll circle back in the
okay.
introduction. So
All
before
right.
you forget it, why
Yeah.
don't I go ahead and say, here we go
Here we
again.
go again.
The Discussing Network presents Discussing Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Kyle Jones, and I want to start by welcoming the man who has something Who related on his mind, none other than Lee Shackelford. How are you, my friend?
Terrific. Terrific. It's
Hmm.
absolutely fine.
You're not Mr. Terrific?
I'm not Mr. Terrific, but I am nonetheless terrific. So, but Tom Terrific, that dates me. I bet you don't remember Tom Terrific.
No.
That's
Don't remember,
sort
Tom. But you do have
that's
something Who related
that's
before we
early
forget it.
'60s.
So tell
Yes,
us.
I have. I thought I was going to Long Island Who. I really, really
mm.
kind of had my heart set on it, and it's clear I can't pull it together, and it's killing me. But meanwhile, our Whovian friend Brett Hairholz, he and I we call ourselves twin sons of different mothers, and he had the idea of putting together a comic book. He's an illustrator, cartoonist, and he said, "You write it, and I'll draw it." And so we have put together a 12-page comic book, which collides the first Doctor and Susan with the movie Doctor
Hmm.
and Susan. So in this mad universe, there's two Doctors and two Susans. And part of that is because Carol Ann Ford will be at the convention. And so as will, oh dear, now I'm blanking on the fugitive Doctor.
Joe
Joe
Martin.
Martin.
Joe Martin. I had Joe, but I couldn't get past that. Joe Martin will be there. Wendy Padbury and Fraser Hines will be there. So as this idea continued to develop, the book also teases that we'll see briefly the fugitive Doctor and Jamie and Zoe.
As Jamie
so
and Zoe.
so that's so it's a silly thing. But anyway, if you are there, you can not only get a copy of this, but you can get it signed by the artist. But look up Brett Hairholz. Give him a search on Google, Herholz, and you will. Patreon members, I think his Patreon supporters are already getting copies of the book.
Hmm.
I hope I'm not over promising. They've been getting sneaks of the pages, page by page, as he's been drawing. But anyway, it is a very, very silly thing,
Mm.
but
Nothing is
should be a lot
silly
of fun.
if it is put together with thought and care and precision. And if
Well,
there's
that's it.
anything that I know about you, and I've had the pleasure of speaking with Brett before,
Yeah,
it's going to be good. So there you go.
it's. I think so. So yeah, check that out. It's our our Doctor Who comic book. Yeah, especially for Long Island Who, whether we're there or not. Anyway, that was my Doctor Who related trivia for the week.
Good deal. Well, you know what is not trivia, but is always good to say, is welcome back, Clarence Brown. Mr. Brown, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. As always, glad to be back on with you guys to talk about Doctor Who and other things. So I'm glad to be here, man.
So before we get into it, I have to ask a question. Can you believe a man can fly, especially this week?
Eyes up here, buddy. Yeah, it's going to be good. I can't wait for it. Don't know how soon I'll actually see it. I'll try to see it this weekend, but Superman is back. It ain't Henry Cavill.
What do you think, Lee? I know this is not Who related, but it's one of the oldest comic book superheroes, or the comic book superhero,
Arguably,
arguably.
yeah. But I've just always been a giant Superman fan, and I'm just happy. James Gunn, I love this cast. All the sneaks that we've seen, it looks like the goal for this film is fun. And and audiences who've gotten sneak previews are coming out just raving, and that's always good to hear. Superman has not been my favorite comic franchise from the beginning, and we've made a lot of movies about Superman. My heart has always belonged to the Fantastic Four, but unfortunately, we're probably never going to get a really great Fantastic Four. Oh, wait, I spoke too soon.
And, you did speak a little bit earlier, and I just hope you are hungry if you get the popcorn bucket that you are planning on getting. And for any of you who are listening and know anything about the Fantastic Four, you'll understand why I said hungry. But for anyone who doesn't know, Lee, what type of popcorn bucket are you getting?
I've just seen pictures of this monstrosity. I don't think I really would get it because I don't know what I'd do with it. But it is like a 2-foot tall Galactus head, which is mostly helmet anyway. But it's a popcorn bucket, and it's I don't know. It's some ridiculously expensive price, but it will be a collector's item. But you can only buy it at the theater when you go in to see Fantastic Four.
First steps.
First steps.
Yes.
So, and I really am excited about that.
So before we move on, I'll just have to say, because in typical Kyle fashion, I'll have to say, at least with the popcorn, you have your head in the game. So there you go.
Head in the game.
Oh, God. So for everyone listening, let me say this. If you have not seen the 60th anniversary or the season 14 or series 14 and 15, season 1, season 2, 2024, 2025 series of Doctor Who,
Whatever you call it.
Whatever you want to call it, on Disney Plus, put us on pause. Go out, watch those episodes, come back, because from this moment forward, spoilers.
And
yes, sir.
And Cal, before we get into it, did you hear the news about HBO Max and Doctor Who?
I didn't, but I am so glad you said that, because that's actually the first thing I have on the news. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yes, this story comes from Inverse. HBO Max has published its latest list of what's leaving the service at the end of the month, and Doctor Who appears to be one of the ones that is getting axed. Doctor Who has been available on Max for as long as the service has existed, but on July 31st will be the final day to catch the time-traveling adventurer, and, we'll see what happens next. Torchwood is leaving on the 26th as well, so, no more Home for Who.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Huh. Yeah. I'm now, thanks to the documentary I'm working on, I'm now swimming in that world just enough to understand that could be a good thing or a bad thing in terms of our access to Doctor Who, because it may just mean that that Max's window has come to an end, and so now it's available to be sold to another service. So that could be because they're letting it go because somebody else has made a good offer on it. And we don't have that announcement yet. So it may be that Disney Plus is going to be the home for all of it. And, you know, I don't know.
Isn't it also rumored that Disney is dropping Doctor Who as well?
Well, that's it. So, and the buzz, you know, I read it on the internet, so it must be so, is that that's because, the, fear not, because Amazon Prime is looking to pick
Oh
it up.
God.
I,
So that's one of
Right.
my questions tonight. Is the Disney Plus era dead on arrival?
I don't know about dead on arrival, but it's dead now.
Well, not yeah, dead
yes,
on
it wasn't
exit or whatever the
right,
word.
dead on exit, right. Yeah. Don't know. I don't know if it's been a good thing or the worst thing possible for the show, for the series,
And that's what I
for
want
the
to kind of get
franchise.
into
Yeah.
tonight is, you know, and I'm going to break it down a little bit, but do we think, well, let me ask this. Let's back up just a little bit because the
Yeah.
last thing that we watched was the finale, the reality war. And, you know, I remember watching it and, you know, having my heartfelt moment, my tears with the exit of the 15th Doctor. But since then, I've found out some other things about, you know, what if scenarios and so forth. And I will tell you this is the first regeneration that in the weeks prior, I've not gone back and watched over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I haven't watched Doctor Who actually in about 2 to 3 weeks, any Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think I know why, but thoughts as to you guys, has your opinion of the finale changed any in the weeks since it's aired?
That is a good question. A point to ponder. I wouldn't say that it's changed. I mean, we were there to talk about it, like, you know, 2 days after we'd all seen it for the first time, and I think we were saying, I have. I don't seriously think that Billy Piper's the next Doctor. I just don't think there would have to have been a deal in place. And as near as we can tell, there just isn't. So, and I hope there's a way to rescue the franchise because that would be a really sad place to leave it after all this time. No reflection on Billy Piper. I just mean that kind of a question mark. That would hurt. But what are
Lee,
your?
what do
I'm
you
talking
think?
too much. What are your thoughts, Clarence?
I mean, Clarence. I meant to say Clarence. What do
No,
you
it's
think?
fine. I think I remain. I don't know if disappointed is the word, but I remain kind of just. It just feels like the whole thing is in limbo. Speaking of the finale specifically and where we left, it felt abrupt. Shooty's in, of course, and we talked about that. And it felt abrupt, but also it's just like, what's next? Is this for real? Is there even anything further mapped out for Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it is. I don't think we don't even have an announced home for
Right.
Doctor Who. So it all just seems like everybody's just sitting around with question marks over their head, trying to figure out what's going on. Even right to the showrunners themselves, trying to make a deal, as they say, make a deal.
Well, even to the point of RTD saying that for now he's bowing out of the showrunners page on Doctor Who magazine. So, that does not give me good, warm, fuzzy feelings about, the immediate future of Doctor Who. And I know if you go back to when this deal happened, I want to say this would have had to have been sometime in 21, 22 for it to be airing in 2023. That's going to be my speculation for them to get, that I don't want to mischaracterize or anything of anything that happened, but I just feel like as an audience we were cheated out of what Ncuti Gatwa could have given us. And I don't think that he as an actor was given whatever it was that could have been given. And I don't know why, but I just, after knowing how they were originally supposedly supposed to be giving the new, that finale and going into the new season would have been, it just puts a very bad taste in my mouth that he regenerated.
Let me ask you guys this. I mean, it's been, 20 years now with the current iteration or run, I'll say.
Yeah, 25, yeah. No, 20. Yeah.
Is it, and I feel like Star Trek is kind of going through this for the third time. Is it time to take a break, put it on the shelf, let it, let people get clamor for it again, and relaunch? Is it time to do a soft reboot, a complete? They tried to do it with Ncuti, but maybe time is the missing factor to make that actually work.
So before you answer that, Lee, this is why I love doing this podcast, because one of my questions is Doctor Who due a rest? Does absence make the heart grow fonder?
Exactly.
Lee?
And we've even talked about that before, but yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is time. It would be sad to keep saying, "Wow, that actor was great," but they just didn't get the scripts, or they just really didn't get the chance they deserve for this, that, or the other reason. We did it with Jodie, and then we did it with Ncuti. Could the show stand for us to do it a third time like that and say, boy, it just you have to start blaming the show after a while. I don't know. And maybe this is too far off topic, but I'd be very interested to know what you think about Joe Straczynski sort of throwing himself into the mix.
Well, this isn't the first time he's done that either.
Right. And he was very clear about saying, nobody has asked for me. I'm going over there to beg them.
Can you
Let
explain?
me-
I don't know who that is.
Babylon 5.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
okay.
a gazillion other things. But yeah, I just think he's a completely brilliant writer and showrunner. He actually sort of fell afoul of the Writers Guild during Babylon 5, because you're not supposed, if you're the showrunner, you're not supposed to write it all yourself. That there are now rules in place to keep people from doing that. And so he had to relent and let other people write episodes of Babylon 5, because by golly, he was going to write every word of it by himself. And it all was coherent. It all made sense. So you think about franchises and think, what if Doctor Who was in his hands? I feel like, yes, please. That would be amazeballs.
But does that make it less British?
Well, possibly, but Disney, I don't. once it became a Disney show, with Neil Patrick Harris.
Well, that was actually another question I had, and Wingrace mentions the spinoff, the War Between Land and Sea, but we can come back to that. But another question I had was, is it actually time? And you just mentioned, Lee, is it actually time to let some non-British team or person try it? And I know we kind of did that with Torchwood by the end of it, and that didn't work out too well. But is it time to breathe fresh life into? I mean, our shows over here, it doesn't matter really where you're from. If you're good, we'll bring you in and let you write some episodes, run,
Not anymore. No, yeah.
So I don't know. It might be time to just give a different take from another region or an American or somebody else. I don't know. It doesn't have to be American.
All right. So let me frame it, shape it a little bit like this. Comparing what we've seen from 2005 up through 2022, and then compare that to 2023 forward. Do you guys feel that Disney had a heavier hand in the storytelling than we may have originally thought? Or was this just RTD trying something new?
I don't necessarily think you can blame Disney because Chibnall's run was not successful. Well, people don't widely consider it to be successful either. So, and I definitely feel like Shudy's stories were better than Jody's to me.
Well, Jody's,
But-
yeah. Yeah.
All right. What do you think, Lee?
Well, I'm struck by the fact that in the chat, Wingraves is saying if anyone can handle a lower budget, he can. We're speaking of Joe Straczynski again, because Fox kept cutting Babylon 5 and cutting it and cutting it and cutting it, which is very similar to Doctor Who in its original run, And he kept making it shine. He kept making, those stories stand out and live in our minds, even with dwindling resources. And I thought a very intelligent conversation online about the current state of Doctor Who. And what these two gentlemen were saying, I wish I could identify them, but I didn't know who they were. But I was just talking back to my computer saying, yes. They were like me. They were saying that what they fell in love with about the original series, about Doctor Who 1963, was that the low budgets forced them to rely on having great ideas. And being able to tell longer stories gave them a chance so that each episode didn't have to be the shimmering jewel of the whole diadem of the series. You could have things, say, well, it's going to get better next week. You could say that. But just essentially the main thing is, okay, we can't afford to build, a whole alternate London with giant, animated skeleton things walking around and things like that. We can't do that. So let's tell a story that's super smart, super funny, super clever, and have it about the characters and about the big ideas. That's the Doctor Who that I fell in love with. And they were saying maybe what this franchise needs is for somebody to say, we want to get behind this show, we want to sustain it, but you're not getting $1 billion every episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really, I hadn't quite put it in those terms before, but as they were saying that, I found myself kind of punching the air, so to speak. I was saying, yeah. We're not going to get a room full of babies and we're going to animate their lips so that they can speak and sync to, adultish voices. We don't have the budget for that. So let's do something else. And I think, yes, for God's sake, let's do something else. we can't fill the place with singing gnomes.
But what you can do
Let's have a-
is, instead of having the babies, you can just take a singular child, put a gas mask on him, and make him ask, "Are you my mommy?"
And that's with a
But-
great
but-
script and interesting characters. Exactly.
Bingo. But
Yeah.
it did not need any special effects other than there were
That morph. Yeah.
the morph, but it wasn't a constant thing. It was a kid in a gas mask.
That's right. And,
And it
that
was
is a period
freaky
piece.
and
you know,
creepy.
and- yeah. And yeah, talk about great scripts with interesting characters. It introduced a character that we're still kind of in love with, and I wept. I cried when the doctor said, "Just this once, Rose. Everybody lives." Where's that? What's happened to that? So that's sort of where I'm at. Let's dial back the flash and the being able to show anything the mind can conceive. Maybe that's not what this particular show needs. It never did. It didn't
For
in
60 years.
1963. Yeah. I don't know.
Clarence, what do you think?
As it pertains to the Flash and the money in the series, I think I appreciate it, but I do agree with you guys where you're saying it doesn't allow as much creativity because anything you can think of, even though if it's not maybe needed or practical, you're going to do because you can.
Just do it. Yeah.
Because I can. So Yeah, I definitely agree that maybe some more constraints could spur creativity, but I also feel like I want to see the pretty shiny stuff too. So I don't know, man.
Well,
This is hard.
yeah, that is. There is that. I mean, sometimes when what was it we were just talking about? Some episode this season where I remember that Clarence that you said all the money was on the screen. There was some episode where we were just wowed by the world building inside it. I was saying, yeah, you're right. They
Okay.
invested deeply in this, and it really worked. It really paid off. But
All right. All right.
I,
Let me give you an example of where I think it works, and this is just my opinion here, but where
mhm.
I think it works versus where I think it was used when it wasn't needed.
Hmm.
I think it worked when you create a concept like Mr. Ring-a-Ding, and it's a unique concept, and it's different. It's
Mhm.
different. So I'll put that in the it worked category. Now, whether you say that's a good story or not, that's beyond, not my
That's
point.
not the
I'm
point
just,
here, right?
it's just saying the use of the money to make that happen. I'm going to say that worked. Where I
Mhm.
think it was over excessive and not really needed was in the case of Sutek and Omega or Omega, however you want to say it.
Mhm.
You have CGI monsters where before you had men in hats. I
Mhm.
personally would have rather have seen men in hats.
Yeah, I think you've raised the example that makes the point. I think that's exactly right. We've seen two versions of Omega before, and it was a guy in a suit, and I was perfectly content with that.
Hmm.
The character and the threat of what he was capable of was sufficient, but to turn him into a giant animated skeleton, huh?
Yeah, it's just
I,
lost me.
yeah, what? Why? Yeah, I,
So let's ask this question. Have we reached the end of RTD2?
well, if he's stepping away, we have.
Yeah. Well, if he's stepping away, he says from the uh, magazine, doesn't necessarily I say that he's stepping away from Doctor Who. Maybe it's just
Hmm.
because you don't have anything to talk about.
No.
Well,
But
he's running the war between land and sea, right?
see, right.
Isn't that his
Okay.
show?
But my thought is, wouldn't you want to be in the magazine promoting that?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. That is kind of curious. But yeah, maybe it's time for war between the land and the sea to sort of take center stage, and then we can come back to Doctor Who when we're all hungry for it again.
It's going to be the Andor of Doctor Who.
That's right. It's the Andor of Doctor Who, which you know that's that's a good analogy. Give us interesting characters and intrigues that we really get emotionally invested in.
Yeah.
You
all
know,
right. So, Clarence, let me ask you this: does Andor have the Star Wars branding anywhere there, or is it just Andor?
I mean, it's loosely in there. I mean, it's Andor is just the name
it's
of it, plain and
So
simple.
it
it's
doesn't have
Andor, a
the
Star Wars story.
story. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it
So
say that?
I believe so. I mean, it's definitely it's you're in the Star Wars world.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you why I even asked that question is the branding that I have seen for the war between the land and the sea doesn't say BBC, Doctor Who, the war.
Oh, right.
It just says the war between the land and the sea.
Hmm.
But there are going to be obvious Doctor Who connections in
Yes.
the
Yeah.
series that
Yeah.
if you know, I guess. But
Mhm.
otherwise, why are you watching it?
Yeah. And for that matter, we didn't say BBC Torchwood. I mean, Doctor Who Torchwood. It just said Torchwood. It just said the Sarah
Yeah.
Jane Adventures. So
Yeah. And yeah, Torchwood was an anagram of Doctor
Doctor
Who,
Who. Yeah.
but yeah, and if you rearrange the letters in the war between the land and the sea, you get. Hang on a minute. No, never mind. Not worth it for the joke, but but there are characters they're unit characters in War Between the Land and the Sea. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yeah. They're human.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that what you
So
said?
yeah, like Gemma Redgrave is in it,
Yes.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So
A proper spinoff.
yeah, So
So what do you think? Do you think this that we're in now? Because when RTD first took over as the new showrunner again, was this just a promo gone wrong, meaning you overpromised and wasn't able to deliver? Because you know back then we're talking about you're going to have we're going to do this so that you'll have Who yearly, and we're going to have spinoffs, and then sort of like this is like I said 21, 22, and then there's the retraction of funds for streaming from the various streamers. Is that what happened here, or what do you think happened?
What are some other Russell T hits besides Doctor Who? Help me out here.
Heartstopper, Queer as Folk,
Chris Folk.
the UK version.
Are those hits? Certified hits? I mean, I
I
don't
think
know.
so.
about any
Chris
of
Folk
those.
was a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's other things that he's done, and he's also promoting something else that he's been working on. So,
The reason I asked that question is, was he the right man for the job at the right time on his first run?
I think clearly.
yes, yes.
So did that mean that it would work again with an American distributor and all that that implies and entails in 2023, 4, 5?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Well, if anyone listened to David Tennant does a podcast with RTD, he
Yeah.
and David talk about the fact that he came back to do this was to protect Doctor Who from, as an intellectual property, from the influence of a major streamer, of the changes they might want. Which
Right.
is why I asked the question of Disney's influence. Is maybe the big budget was, he had to do that, and it.
I just feel like it's a cop out to. I keep hearing the laying it at the feet of Disney. I just feel like that's a cop out in my opinion. I really do. Disney is definitely not perfect. Trust me. I've seen all the Marvel Disney shows, and half of them suck immensely. So Disney is not perfect, but I still am reticent to blame it all on them. Russell, he still ran the show. It still was shot in his studios
It's true.
in Cardiff.
Yep.
I'm sure Disney had some influence, but they'd have to do a lot of messing up to send it off course, or maybe just merely the branding of the name of Disney was enough to give any people who were on the fence enough to push them over and be like, oh, now Disney has it. I'm through,
I'm trying to figure out how much I can say about the project that I'm working on now, because we're not in a place to make an official announcement, but I have been working with people who work under the Disney umbrella. Is that vague enough?
That's vague enough.
Yeah. And our show, we're told, will have to respond to some things that are part of our distributor's brand and image and general aesthetic. In other words, they're telling us we may have to make some pretty profound changes in what we do if it's going to go out flying under their banner. And part of that is because they're owned by Disney. They're not owned, but they're partners with Disney Plus. So I can imagine people at Disney saying, with all good intention and, their years of expertise and being the industry leaders, saying to Bad Wolf Productions, okay, we're going to make, this is going to be one of our flagship shows. We're going to make this featured content like Andor. But here are some things you need to have in it if it's going to be if we're going to do that.
You mean Stark Tower? I mean Avengers Tower. I mean
Yeah,
Yeah.
Network.
and
It-
those budgetary, you know, certain format, certain resolution, certain film stock or whatever they may have put on them. I think I like all
Yeah.
of those changes.
Yeah.
But if that bleeds into story
Yeah.
and creativity, I think that's obviously a problem.
So here's what I think ultimately happened, in my opinion. Well, the only thing I personally will fault Disney for, because at the end of the day, Doctor Who is a property, just like Andor is a property, just like Boba Fett is a property, just like anything Marvel is a property, et cetera, and so forth. And it is an intellectual property that they have invested in, and they're looking at the red and the black and how much money we're making, et cetera. So I get that at the end of the day, their investment in Doctor Who is not about the characters that we know and love. It's, are you going to make me some money? I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day, you know, and I can't fault them for that. And I personally can't fault them for the fact of you helped keep Doctor Who on the air from 23 to 25, because if their alternative, if they didn't have a streamer, might have been no 60th anniversary. So
That's
I'm
right.
not faulting any of that. That all being said, I wonder and I speculate if the idea that RTD had that said maybe in 2005 I went for a 15 up audience, and that's who I'm going to appeal to as my target audience. And with this iteration, I'm going to say maybe 11 to 12 audience up. So you've not dumbed it down. I don't mean that, but you
Right.
made it more appealing to a younger audience and made it more playful. Maybe turned off some people.
Yeah. And that is exactly the kind of thing that could or would have come down from upstairs.
So you think this was made more childish?
Maybe.
I don't know if I don't see that at all.
I think the gods of the other world and the big dog riding the TARDIS and things like that. Space babies.
Yeah, I mean
But yeah, I think about the story engine episode. That ain't for kids. So it's a little hard to, or the well, for heaven's sake. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That wasn't
true.
for kids.
And
no.
also, I mean, this has probably been the most progressive Doctor Who we've had.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. And it's
Hey,
not
man,
all
swap.
bad, because you know what? I tried to say, let's give our top 3 things and that I liked. And then I wound up saying 5, and now I have 6 and an honorable mention.
There you go.
You know, so I don't want this to come across as I thought this era was negative. I don't think that at all. You know, the only thing I have a bad taste in my mouth is circumstances, in my opinion, cheated us out of 1 or 2 more seasons of the 15th Doctor.
Yeah.
That's the only sour taste that I have, is what could have possibly been had circumstances been different. But I can't blame anybody for whatever, because nobody can predict the future.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, the first year we had Dr. Light episodes because Shooty was busy doing other things that he had already committed to. And then we had this abrupt exit because, Hollywood is wooing him away. A lot of the things that didn't work for these 2 years of Doctor Who is because Shooty was too good. He's he's too hot a property. It's you can't blame anybody for that.
And another thing I thought about since we've seen the finale is this didn't end in a bi-generation. So I guess
Nope,
that's done.
There's that. Yeah, maybe we're done with that.
Hopefully.
Well, what do you guys think of this decision at the very end, and I'll go ahead and answer my own question before I stop, to put Billy Piper at the very end in this clearly put on Shudy's body, not, it wasn't even her complete, it was just her face that they recorded, because they recorded, I think, in her house somewhere or somewhere not on location or what. I think it was a mistake. I would have rather have just seen him glow out and then it go off, as opposed to this gotcha moment. Now, if this was truly RTD stepping away and he wanted to bookend this era, it began, the first face we saw was Billy Piper, and the last face we see is Billy Piper.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that for bookends, but for narrative, and I just don't know what to say. So, thoughts?
I would just say, don't throw us down a rabbit hole without a plan.
Yeah.
For this, I'll go back to Star Wars once again. At the end of Force Awakens, Rey hands Luke the lightsaber, and we think in the next movie we're going to see Luke and be all heroic.
Yep.
But that's not what Rian Johnson had in mind.
No.
First gets a lightsaber, throws it over his shoulder, and the heck with
Not
the
interesting.
Force. So it's a bold choice, but I hate to see a bold choice without any mapped out direction. And maybe there is direction. We're just not privy to it. Maybe they're just trying to keep us in the dark. So I guess time will tell.
If we had to end on a question mark, which it still is no matter what, I'm with Kyle. I would like to have seen the regeneration effect, and then we pull out to the ending that was originally planned and shot to end this series on, and see that they're all being watched on TV by Susan.
Yes.
And in there.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
And see, that's
It would
my
still have been a
other-
question mark. I mean, we're still going to be saying, the hell? But it's just a different way from Billy Piper.
But that is another, and thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Knowing that Carol Ann Ford shot another scene that we didn't get to see
Yeah.
is disgusting, for lack of a better word. For all these years we've waited for her to return,
Right.
and knowing because of circumstances that on the cutting room floor that we may see one day on a DVD release or whatever, was this scene with Carol Ann Ford holding, and this actor is an awesome actor. She is as cute of a child that I've ever seen, but this finale made me hate the character of Poppy, or whatever her name is. Poppy.
Yes.
Because to me,
Popsicle.
it's like she took my 15th Doctor away from me.
Well,
Exterminate you.
Well, that's
Sorry.
harsh.
I know, but still.
Welcome, listeners, to Disgusting Who.
Yes. Oh, okay. I got it out of my system. All right, so let me
But
ask you.
I do think they did Carol Ann Ford dirty, and that's too bad. But I understand. It's like, okay, the series is coming to an end. We're losing Judy. What are we going to do? And I don't know.
All right, before we move to the positive to wrap up our discussion, I want to ask one negative question or critiqueful question. What would it be if you could name your biggest complaint about the Disney Plus era? What would it be? Biggest complaint about the Disney Plus era? Clarence, I'll start with you.
I think for me, very easily, it's the bi-generation. I think it's an interesting idea that, maybe one-off, we see it once and then we move on from that. Even use the hammer to make two TARDISes. I mean, TARDI. I think on the face of it, it could be a cool idea to do once. But then the fact that we have the Run, they do the same thing. I was just like, this is not something that can continue. We have David Tennant's Doctor out there doing what? There's two David
Yeah.
Tennants out there, and one in the parallel universe, one
Right. Yeah.
doing what? What is
We're
he doing?
flooding the world with David Tennants. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it may have been a more interesting concept on paper than not even in the immediate unveiling of it, because I still thought I liked the immediate unveiling of it with Judy and Tennant playing on each other. I thought that was interesting. But as I think about it more and as time goes on, I think it's probably be a misstep. You know, we've had other missteps that we've had not really resolved in the past too. So I don't know. I just feel like this is another one. Although it was explained, but I guess I just don't like it.
Okay, Lee, what say you?
I think my beef with these last couple of years has been the lack of consistency in tone. You know, that we were, and the show has always been able to sort of range all over the map, that it could be funny and very serious and tragic in turns, and explore big ideas and hunker down on character moments, so it's always had that range. But to go from the kind of outrageous silliness and camp of doing a flat out musical and things like that comes up out of the blue, and then to try to go as dark as something like The Well, it just felt too all over the map. It felt rudderless. It felt like there was nobody at the helm. And, at times.
Yeah. I totally agree, because my comment was going to be, I was going to categorize it as inconsistent storytelling. And it did not feel like there was a plan, even though he said there was a plan. So maybe this was over promoting and under delivering. But, I go in and I look at the Star Wars effect, as we called it, with the revelation of Ruby Sunday's mom. After that big build up of who's the mystery woman, then she's quote unquote nobody. And then, we didn't get, as Wingrace just said in the chat, the failing almost every payoff, from Ruby to Sutek to the arc of Belinda to Mrs. Flood being almost nothing to another nothing Omega.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And far as characterization goes, it's like you created this awesome character with Belinda, and then to reshape her as a character, in my opinion, in those final moments of the finale, to being, not saying that being a mother is bad and getting
Right.
back for your child is bad, but rewriting those scenes to be something different kind of reconceptualizes this character that we all really, really liked. And I just think that all of that was a miss.
They did
So,
Belinda dirty.
They did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's end on a positive note. So
Yeah.
I asked you guys to come up with 3 things. Did you come up with 3, or did you come up with more?
5-ish.
All right.
I'm still counting.
Okay. So, Clarence, why don't you start? We don't have to, let's just all name them at the same time. So what was your list?
My list of the Disney era likes. I love the Doctor daring to be different. I just loved every part about his expression, how he was all unabashedly himself. I just thought the way he was portrayed, I thought was a great breath of fresh air. Number 2 is the companions. We just mentioned them. I love both of them. Number 3, the attempt to bridge the past to the present. I love the attempt. I don't know if I love the execution. I'll point out Mel as being my number 1 highlight of that, because I just, we took a character that we have complained about, Cal mocks constantly, and made me actually really, really like that character. And next I have the preachiness, and how, in a sense, it wasn't preachy, but it was, because we go back to the episode, and I forget the name of the episode, where they're on the phones all the time, or the tech episode.
Dot and Bubble.
Yeah, Dot and Bubble.
Mhm.
I go back to that because that was something that should have hit me in the face, and it kind of I was lost by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And for people to give you or shed a little light on something that you missed, and then you go back and you, I think Tasha called it microaggressions from the episode that really were there the whole time. I really appreciate that. So being preachy and not being preachy, that was something I like from some of the episodes from the era. And lastly, I'll say the new unit. I have famously hated unit in all of New Who, basically. I was just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
But, you talk about that Avengers Tower. I like that Avengers Tower. And I really, unit, this is my unit here. I will say that. That's something that has to go forward. And obviously we'll see it in the war between land and sea, hopefully. So, yeah, I like the new unit. I thought that's a huge highlight of the Disney era.
All right. Very good list, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, Lee, what say you?
I want to just say, everything Clarence says. That's cheating. E- For me, it's hard not to sort of talk about, can I call him the elephant in the room? That this is our Black Doctor. Maybe not our only one in the world, but certainly going to be the first. And I just liked that. And I loved these moments where the Doctor has to be aware of the fact that he's in a climate that may not be agreeable to him. Like we're in 1950s Florida. And Kyler, you called my attention to this, and I had missed it completely. And when I watched the episode again, there is that great moment where he just looked at the back of his hand, and you could see it register on his face, like, oh yeah, that's right. I can't just go swanning into places like I usually do when I'm the white guy, Yeah. So,
Yes.
and Dot and Bubble, that may be my favorite episode of these 2 years for a lot of reasons. But by the time we got to the end of that, I just appreciated how seriously the show was taking that.
Yeah.
And let me say again
yeah.
that was the first scene that he shot as
Yes,
Doctor.
that's right. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of behind the scenes stuff just makes your head spin. We talk about that. I feel like maybe the show should have spent its money elsewhere, or something like that. But boy, when we go to the planet Belinda Chandra and that whole world, I just wanted to go live there.
It's cool.
Just giant robots, I'm
Miss,
so
Miss
that's
Belinda
that,
Chandra won.
exactly. That's just something that made me really happy.
Oh,
I
and
liked
Gadget.
Gadget, yes. And I loved how different this TARDIS was. It was like just sweeping everything else off and saying, let's just start over with the whole idea of the TARDIS. It's not my favorite TARDIS interior, but I just liked how different it was. And one of the things that was charming about the TARDIS interior in the past was it was clearly this alien artifact, this thing from another world and another technology. But there's the simple prosaic hat rack in the corner, little coat tree over there, and things that they've obviously picked up and said, oh, we'll just put this here, I guess, And so we get the jukebox in this one. And that's what he'd keep. His one thing from the earth. That's, it just all made sense to me. I don't know. There are just a lot of moments from these 2 years that I really treasured. And I'm with Clarence. I was a big fan of Unit in the original series just because it was so much about characters that we liked. It was about the Brigadier and about Benton and Sergeant Yates. We liked them. And so that was cool. Unit was largely incompetent, but we liked them. But then in the new series, it's like the Doctor Who's never figured out what to do with Unit since 2005. And at last, we have with Kate, we've got a unit that seems competent and is
Connected.
equipped and connected.
They
Yeah,
must remain connected, Lee
and that's,
Shackelford.
how about that? Yeah, I just yeah, I just enjoyed them a lot. And this shows my wokeness, but I just enjoyed the representation. There's so many differently abled, openly gay characters in this year right now, and I know that that's really irks some people. So, well, that's how the world is, so get used to it. And I really enjoyed the show taking us there. So there you go.
Okay. So my list starts with someone I've already mentioned. And I'm going also back to the 60th anniversary specials, in this Disney Plus era. But my number one has to be Susan. I mean, we've been waiting for years and years and years from the 50th anniversary to the 60th anniversary,
Right.
And beyond.
The five
Susan.
doctors don't count.
Yes, and the Five Doctors does not count. But yes, we got to see Susan. We didn't get to see what we would have loved to have seen, but we got to see Susan. So I am not complaining. So that was number one. And number two, Donna Noble has been saved. I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
Catherine Tate returning
Very much
and
so, yeah.
wrapping
She was
up that Donna Noble story, along with honorable mention. We get to see the last appearance of Bernard Cribbins as Wilf before he passes away. So that right there. Number three, the 15th Doctor. Number four, the 14th Doctor. Number five, returning Doctors in season two. And we
True.
got a glimpse of the Fugitive Doctor, and we know I love the Fugitive Doctor. We also got to see, honestly, Jodie Whittaker in one of her best performances, I would say.
I loved that.
I just really loved that. And it actually made me want to go back and watch 13th Doctor episodes. Just in that. I mean, and that right there is a win, because I haven't been wanting to go back and watch the 13th Doctor episode.
Yeah.
Number six, I did give an extra, Murray Gold, I think has to be mentioned. The
Yeah.
music,
Mm-hmm.
Here,
here.
Yeah, I wonder after this era, would it make the Jodie Whittaker era, a bit more fonder in our hearts? I think maybe. I
Maybe.
think I kind of want to go back and watch it again
Well, yeah.
because I love the ass and all. Right, I love I love the characters.
Mm-hmm.
it is making me, you are right, Clarence, it is making me want to go back and watch again. There was just something endearing about that version of the Doctor's appearance. And no, I'm talking about her interaction with the 15th. There was just something endearing about that.
Yeah.
Now,
And by the way, remember that in that scene, she didn't know what a bigeneration
no,
was.
and he said, "Never mind."
Yeah. So I think that was the show closing the loop on that. We're
Yes.
done with that.
Yeah, but it also puts in his mind for the future. You set the stage. This is the same thing that happened of why he looked like Capaldi, was him describing to Clara, please don't tell me I didn't get old, anything but old. And then ask her to describe, hello, that's why you look like that. So anyway, now I do have an honorable mention. Can anybody guess what my honorable mention is going
Don't
to be?
do it to me. I'm
Duggadoo,
leaving the podcast immediately.
Duggadoo, Duggadoo.
Do dugga 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 do dugga do dugga dugga do dugga do dugga do dugga dugga dugga
Nope,
do.
there goes Clarence.
La 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 la
Faith in
la. Kill me now.
Can
It was Kyle Jones' birthday last week, and I called him, and I did not sing happy birthday to him. So, but I said, Duggadoo,
Dugga
Duggadoo.
do dugga 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 do dugga dugga do.
leave you a very long Duggadoo voicemail?
La 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 la.
Can I add to the likes of this era? Can I
Duggadoo.
add? I think this era has my two maybe my two most favorite Doctor Who or Doctor Light stories, including 73 Yards, which amazing Black Mirror-esque episode of Doctor Who that, almost feels like not Doctor Who, but I love it nonetheless. And I thought Lucky Day was, these are both Ruby episodes. That might be telling me something.
Yeah.
I thought Lucky Day was another excellent Dr. Light episode where we see the whole social media or fringe internet voice kind of play out, which comes back, later in the finale. So yeah, I thought those were two great Dr. Light episodes that I really have to point out. I think those can be just watched and, without context, and I think they're both pretty good.
Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that those are both Millie Gibson centered hours of television. She's terrific.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
So, do any of you have any other items to discuss before we wrap?
have you spent any time thinking about what Billy Piper's doctor might be like? If that really is, if it turns out somehow that that's where we're going. Because it's not Rose.
No, but my brain can't quite wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
Have you? I'll put that question back on you.
Whoa.
Have you?
I have. That's something that I find kind of exciting. I would love to see that actor playing a character who is not Rose Tyler, who's not the bad wolf, I don't think. This is the doctor with all the lives that they've lived before. It just happens to look like Billie Piper in her 40s or whatever. And I don't know. It will depend on scripts, but there's an energy that she has that's an earnestness that I think was great for Rose, and I could see that serving someone playing the doctor really well as well. That she would just be the person with all the ideas, the person with the energy, the person with no, wait a minute, let's do this. We got to do this. Here's how we're going to save the day. I know the odds are impossible, but look,
All right. Clarence?
Oh, wow, I haven't thought about this, and it makes me kind of excited because I mean, Billie Piper does anyway, but I just think of all the things she could bring to this role. So let's look at Doctor's past. We have people who were fans of Doctor Who that come on and play the role. In Jodie Whittaker's case, didn't know anything about Doctor Who, come on and play the role. But let's think about what Billie Piper is bringing to the table here. Someone that is a fan, was on the show for many, many, many years, to got to see it unfold from the other side, another lens, so to speak. And now she's coming in to play the role, the principal character role of the Doctor. I think she's going to have a perspective that no other Doctor has had before. All the years she's been on the show. And just being up close and personal with seeing the different nuances of the actors that she's been on screen with that has played the Doctor. I think it could really be amazing if done right. I think she has a perspective no one else can have that has, unless they've been a companion in that role. I think it could be really special if done right.
That's a great point.
All right. So I'm going to answer it in two ways. If I'm looking at it from the ability of the actor, Billie Piper herself, she would knock it out of the park. I mean, home run, I think she could do it for all the reasons you guys just said. From a character understanding of the previous character this person has played, if you were telling me that Catherine Tate was coming back to play the Doctor, or Pearl Mackie was coming back to play the Doctor, or Jenna Coleman was coming back to play the Doctor, or Karen Gillan, I'm going down the row here.
Yeah.
But all of these characters, maybe Karen Gillan at the bottom of that list only because of her connection to River. But okay, if you would have announced that Alex Kingston, if he would have regenerated into Alex Kingston, I would have had the same issue that I'm about to present. Is would it be an obstacle to overcome that you are now having the face of a character that you at some point in this story loved?
Yeah.
And that is my problem in a narrative sense of would you be able to narratively overcome this need for a psychiatrist couch of why are you now looking like this
Yeah.
person that you've had romantic feelings
Did he
for?
though? Did he though? I mean, did that? I don't know.
I mean, we were assuming that he married River, but I mean, you know,
He was going to say, I love you before his time ran out.
Yeah.
It was on his lips.
yeah. So,
Wingrave suggests that it really should be Matt Lucas.
there you go.
And I think that's
oh boy.
Arthur Darvill. I mean, who knows?
Arthur.
He's already played a Time Lord on that other show.
That's right.
But I mean, hey, it's making us have a conversation about this. So
Yeah,
it's keeping it conversational. And maybe that was the idea is give them something to speculate on during this quiet time.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Lee, you always have something that you like telling people. And what might that be?
I love to say we know you got other things you could be doing, and you've chosen to spend this time with us. It's been more than an hour now, and you're still here. Thank you.
Indeed, indeed. And Clarence, if someone wanted to find out more about us, where might they go?
We're wherever podcasts can be found and on the YouTubes. No, you can support the show by subscribing, leave a review, and telling a friend. If you have something you want us to know, a review idea, or anything else, send that in to discussingwho@gmail.com or at discussingwho on any and all social medias.
Well, not all of them. Most of them.
Please suggest things because we're flat out now.
Yeah.
We got nothing.
Well, we can go classic because, you know, I was
Yes.
sitting here thinking we were doing Torchwood, but I'm sorry, I'm not going out and buying Torchwood. Just saying. Just saying.
There you go.
There
Well,
you
then
go.
maybe we need to, in honor of Brett's comic book, maybe we need to revisit Dalek Invasion of Earth 2150.
Yeah, I've never
AD.
seen that, actually.
Wow, really?
No, I've never.
With the very young and handsome Bernard Cribbins?
Yeah, never been
one
there,
of the-
never done that.
Yeah, it is pretty much Dalek Invasion of Earth, the serial that in which we left behind Susan.
Does
yeah.
it have the classic speech at the end? Does he leave his
No.
6-year-old grandchild?
No, exactly. You'll be fine. No, it does not. But it's yeah. It's the two Peter Cushing movies are in some ways just as different as can be. And yeah, the first one is just the Daleks, and it's I don't know. That was taking the Daleks and trying to make it for 8-year-olds, and I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag, but I really enjoy Dalek Invasion of Earth. It's more of a war movie and more of an exciting sci-fi drama. And the Daleks have a spaceship in it, and it's actually a pretty cool miniature. It's always like seeing it on screen and go, oh, good, we're going to see the Dalek ship again. Whee! So anyway,
All right. Well, good. That gives us something to quote unquote look forward to.
maybe.
All right. Well, for everyone listening, let us know what you thought. Did you agree that this was, yeah, you know, there were highs and there were lows, just like with, I guess, anything else, or just let
Yeah.
us know what you thought in general. But as always, we will be back next time.